Perfect. Also, Logan, where are you located? I know Rachel's in Buffalo.
I am in Brickell, Miami.
Ah, nice.
Nalini, I can't believe that you are taking time to spend off of your maternity leave. First of all, congratulations. But second of all,
Thank
wow,
you.
we are on.
I was just telling Rachel we're 4.5 weeks old.
Wow,
Yes, four
wow,
and a half weeks.
girl.
Girl. So this is our third. So we have boy, girl, girl.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all chaos here. So we're not throwing a webinar and add some more chaos.
Love it.
So we're just giving a couple more minutes for people to join here, and then we'll get started. This
Do
is
we get to
recorded.
see the attendees? Great. Yeah, I see a couple.
Yep, you should be able to see that. And then there will be a question and answer box where you can submit your questions. Feel free to submit those questions as we're talking. This is very conversational. We want to be able to make sure you're getting everything that you need out of this session from us. It's recorded, so we will be sending this to all of the attendees and everybody who also registered for the event. All right. Just give it another minute or two. So, have you guys always been in Miami? Is that where you were based? I think I've met a
Yeah,
couple of.
I was born and raised here. Our office is in Boca. So
Okay,
I'm a Miami boy at heart through and through.
very nice. And then
Yeah.
Rachel,
And
you're
you?
also always in Buffalo, yeah?
No, I spent actually lived here in New York for 6 years, and then I lived in San Francisco for 4 years.
Oh wow, I
So
don't think I knew that.
yeah, so I spent like a decade. I spent my 20s, mostly my 20s away, and then came back to Buffalo for my
So
30.
you truly have experienced the East Coast, West
I
Coast,
know. Yeah, I went
which is
from one.
which is the best coast.
Uh, mm, that's really hard to say. They each have their pros and
Yeah,
cons. But I
yeah,
did
Yeah.
go from like one of the most expensive cities to live in, then to like the second most expensive city to live in.
yeah. Those are
So,
interesting choices.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Buffalo's a little bit better. You're
Yeah,
like, no,
Buffalo's got a great quality, great cost of living. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Um, all right, well, we will get started here. Today, we're talking about transforming plaintiff funding, a new era for legal finance. I will start by saying Blue Shark doesn't traditionally talk a lot about funding with our clients or with our audience. It's usually a topic where people get lost or they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about funding, right? And so for me, I thought it was very cool to meet and learn a lot more about ClaimAngel through conferences. Logan, we've seen you guys a lot on the road in your brand, but really sitting down, having a conversation and learning how different you were from a traditional funding company was very interesting to me. And then Rachel here with Milestone Foundation, even more different, right? Nonprofit, very different than a traditional funding company. So I thought that this would be a very different, more thought leadership conversation where we're really teaching folks what's behind the curtain. We understand why you might not like funding, but here's a different side of things, right? And maybe a perspective that they've never seen. So, with that being said, I'm going to let you guys kind of take a minute to introduce yourselves. So, we'll start with Rachel, and then you can pass it over to Logan.
Cool. Thank you, Nalini. I'm Rachel McCarthy. I'm the executive director of the Milestone Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides plaintiff funding. And this year is actually our 10-year anniversary. So we've been around, been in service, been, working to change the stigma around plaintiff funding for 10 years now.
Love it. And then Logan.
Yeah, I'm Logan Alters. I'm co-founder and head of growth at ClaimAngel. We are not a funding company. Let's get that out there first. We are a marketplace. We have a single set rate. We're looking to, when we have, change the dynamic of funding in this industry, and we'll talk about that a little bit on this podcast. Um, we see an entire new future for plaintiff funding, as well as Rachel does, and we're super excited to talk about it. Thank you, Nalini and Rachel. We've talked about this a bunch of times. Um, that we see an entirely new future for plaintiff funding, not being this predatory high rate lending business and being actually a tool to help people in the hardest parts of their lives.
Awesome. So I'm going to dive in with we're going to just get this stuff out of the way first, right? We talked about a little bit about just the connotation and the reputation that funding has in the industry. And so we know that people are generally hesitant to talk about it, kind of look away from the funding booths at conferences. But in your opinion, you guys are experts, you've been doing this for a long time. Let's start with Rachel. A
Mhm.
couple of reasons that you think that this industry has that negative reputation and your kind of take on those opinions.
Sure. Well, historically, I think the industry, consumer litigation funding, has been considered to be predatory and exploitative of plaintiffs who are people who are already going through a really hard time in their lives. And they're already trying to navigate the legal system, which is complicated. They are probably dealing with an injury or a trauma or something like that. So they're having a really hard time in their lives. And they might also be going through some financial duress. And so this industry has often found a way to, I don't want to say take advantage of folks in this situation, but there's a need for these folks to have financial support. And they have an asset that is their future settlement. And so historically, I think attorneys perceive the funding companies as as exploiting that need, and they do it in a way that they provide funding with a lot of strings attached. So there are ambiguous fees that are charged. There are high interest rates that get charged, all under the guise of it being non-recourse funding. So theoretically, if the plaintiff doesn't recover, they don't owe anything back. And because of that, it's not traditional lending. So the traditional funding companies can get away with charging really high interest rates. So I think that attorneys are generally very protective of their clients, as they should be, and they want what's best for their clients. And when they see these funding companies offering plaintiffs money with really high interest rates, at the end of the day, when the settlement does come, when a plaintiff owes half or a significant portion of their settlement back to the funding company, it makes for a frustrating experience for everyone. The plaintiff is frustrated. They might not have understood what they were signing up for. A lot of times these companies have agreements that are not very transparent, or they're not very easily digestible to the average person. So the plaintiff is frustrated, and the attorney is usually frustrated at the end too, because they've worked so hard to get their client what they think is justice, in the form of money. And then to see a significant part of that go to the funding company is just, that must be super frustrating.
And not we're not here bashing, funding companies, things like that, but you, with your experience, have seen those things to be true. Like you said, there are contracts that are really hard to read and sometimes, hidden fine print and things like that. And what you also see in the industry, and I guess Logan, you can kind of tie this into your answer too. Um, are you finding that most firms and lawyers will try funding once, and once they've had a bad experience, they're just done with it? Or are you seeing that they're willing to try again? Because at the end of the day, it's their reputation too. A client has a bad experience, they don't go tell their friends to use them. They don't go talk about them in a good light, right?
Right.
I guess for you, Logan, your take on what has kind of created a negative connotation around funding, and then also your experience personally with, talking to firms and hearing their experiences. Are they like one and done? And how do you
Yeah.
kind of overcome that?
Yeah. You said that we're not here to bash, and I'm going to be straight up with the fact that I am here to bash. I think that the industry has created its own reputation. There's ridiculous rates, there's no set standard, and it's become a relationship-based business. It's 100% contracts plus a year. Rachel, you've seen crazy contracts. A client gets $5,000. It turns into a $20,000 payoff in a year, 18 months, whatever it is. It eats at the settlement. It doesn't help the settlement. You have funders having different terms, hidden fees, rules that don't make sense because funder A wants this term, funder B wants this term, and the lawyer just can't advocate for it because there's no set standard. And funders spend so much money and time on whining and dining and trying to get law firms, businesses, and not enough time on optimizing the plaintiff's contract. What's the rate that I can get my business to grow as a funding company, but still help the plaintiff? And I think that's been lost in the industry. The contracts that I've seen, especially early on and going through, they are so ridiculously high, it is absurd. I'm looking at, I saw one contract one time, a $2,000 funding and an $8,500 fee, just a fee, without the rate on that contract, just to get
Mhm.
$2,000 to the plaintiff.
Yep.
Ridiculous, Nalini. But here's the thing. In litigation, one of the most important assets is time. Time is one of the most important assets. Plaintiffs don't have the time. Nalini, let me ask you, what percentage of America lives paycheck to paycheck?
Oh God, that's gotta be high.
Yeah, take a guess. There's
I'm
studies
sure
out
it's
there.
increasing every
I'm
single
so
day.
bad at these things, but I don't know. Let's go 65%.
Yeah, there's studies that say 80. Let's just go over 50% of America lives
Yeah,
paycheck to paycheck.
too.
What's the average household savings runway in America? Meaning, if you didn't get any more paychecks, how long could they last on savings before they run out of money? Go broke.
The average,
Yeah,
we're saying that more than half,
time base.
yeah,
Yeah,
our paycheck to paycheck, then a month or two. I don't
three
know. I don't,
weeks. Three
yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
So 3 weeks. You had good guesses. But the average case takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months, depending on the state. So
Mhm.
what we're saying is that plaintiffs don't have time, and the fence has all the time in the world. Plaintiffs can't pay for their bills, they can't pay for their rent. The insurance companies, they have this motto: delay, deny, defend. They're going to delay all they can because then they know the plaintiffs can't wait. They need the money now. So this is a necessary industry, and unfortunately, it's an industry that's massively underserved. Only about 5% of plaintiffs take funding because it's so damn expensive. Funding is so damn expensive that it is a last resort. It doesn't make sense to take money out on your case because it's going to turn into a 4x repayment in 18 months. So the point I'm getting to there is that the industry has earned its reputation. It's time to transform it, and that's what ClaimAngel and the Milestone Foundation are doing. We're rebuilding it from the ground up. And other industries have done this. Industries have done this, but it was about 40 years ago. Stock brokerages and all this stuff. There's brokers and so many different brokers, but now there's a standard. And so we're building the standard, the Milestone Foundation and ClaimAngel, we're building the standard. Those are the facts that really lead to that negative connotation.
I
So
would,
I'm actually gonna
can I
pivot a
add?
little here. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
Well,
Rachel.
so I mean, Logan and I were just talking about this last week about how the industry as a whole has not changed probably ever. In most industries, you have to, they evolve, you have to adapt. And no one's really done anything. I mean, we've been around for 10 years, but we're a small nonprofit, but uh, that's why it's nice to have an alliance with ClaimAngel who really wants to shake things up too, because there hasn't been really anyone who's willing to lead the shift and make things better for plaintiffs. I mean, trial lawyers certainly, but also they have a million things on their plates. They're not about to try to take on a whole industry and improve this when they have, when plaintiff funding is just a small piece of the whole puzzle for them. But your question about are attorneys typically like one bad experience and then they're done with it? I think it's more about the fact that no one really has done things differently for so long that they just assume that everyone is the same and that they're all everything is just maybe like there's one company that's marginally better than the other, so does it matter? And the attorney will either let their clients find whoever they find and bring the funding request to the attorney, um, or they'll just go to the person that they've always gone to because they don't know that there are alternatives out there. And so that's the important thing that we are trying to get across too, ClaimAngel and the Milestone Foundation, is that there are alternative models. And so to open people's eyes a little bit to the idea that plaintiff funding isn't just what you've always thought it to be.
I love everything that you just said and both of you put together there. And that's kind of what brought me to want to have this webinar, to have you guys in particular come on. Because I will say, the first time that I met someone from ClaimAngel and I heard what you guys do, the first word that came to mind was disruption, which was disrupting the existing system. And exactly what you said, Rachel. Everyone believes that everyone is the same. What's interesting is that right now, ClaimAngel is the only one that does what they do. There's not a competitor that's come out. There's not other people that are on this wave of change, like you kind of phrase it, Rachel, right? So I'm going to pivot and ask a couple of questions based on that. So you talked a lot, Logan, about like the fees and the percentages, and Rachel, you touched on that too. How are you guys changing the system with those rates and actually making this more digestible so that it's not only serving 5% of plaintiffs out there in the future?
Yeah, the first thing we looked at was not how much profit can we make off of a plaintiff for a case. We put ourselves in the shoes of a plaintiff. They're struggling. How are they paying their bills? They have a credit card. They can take out a payday loan. They can get money from their family. That savings runway, like we talked about, is closing, especially when someone had an accident, they can't work as much as they used to. So we looked at how do we create a system that works for funders and truly helps plaintiffs. We said we got to beat the credit card. The average credit card is 28 to 36%, compounding, fully recourse, and does not cap. Monthly payments. What we've done is we created a rate, a single set rate, 27.8%, simple interest with a 2x cap. That 2x cap hits at almost 4 years. There's no other company in the industry that has that single set rate. And there's a reason for that. What we've done at ClaimAngel is we've automated so much of the process and we've taken so much work off of the funding company's plate. Their cost to fund a claim is 95% lower. So they can handle that lower rate. So our motto is we're the rule of one. One rate, one process, one outcome. One rate, one single set of terms for all of the funding companies on the platform. There's no variation. And the outcome is a fairly funded plaintiff that can be patient and get bigger outcomes on their cases. And we have plenty of case studies that I can talk about later of how law firms help turn a six-figure settlement into a seven-figure settlement, and a client got $100,000 more in their pocket because they were patient. And our rate is really, really going to be the foundation of changing this entire industry, as well as Milestone's mission-driven nonprofit angle of it. They're really focused on the mission of the industry, and I love that. Rachel's really driving that. We're really looking at market destruction, market creation, and market design to change the dynamic of the industry.
No, absolutely. And then Rachel, so as we're talking about like making sure the audience understands there's different options out there,
Mhm.
might blow people's minds to understand that there's a nonprofit out there doing
I
this. Like you
know.
clearly are not profit first. So talk a little bit about what you guys have done, how you offer a different perspective here.
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge where to start because people never think of plaintiff funding and nonprofit in the same sentence. And so just conceptually from the jump, we have a hurdle to get over with attorneys. So we are a nonprofit. I mean, nobody's making any money. We charge really low interest rates. So it's 15% simple interest for pre-settlement funding. And for post-settlement funding, it's 10% simple interest. So when we say simple, most of the traditional funding companies, just to back up for a second, have models of interest that accrues at a compounding rate, which means it doesn't just grow on the principal, it grows on the principal and the growth on the principal. And some of them compound monthly, some of them will compound twice a year. Some of them have schedules that I can't even comprehend when they compound. But
The
um,
the quick math on that is if you have a $5,000 funding and it's 100% annually compounding interest, 5,000 turns to 10,000, and then 10,000 turns to 20,000 year after year and onwards.
Just doubling at
That's
100%.
the compounding of it. Go ahead, Rachel. Sorry to cut you off.
no, it's okay. Um, so we charge simple interest like ClaimAngel's model. Because first of all, it's just easier for plaintiffs to understand and for attorneys, it's easier for anyone to understand. And all the money that goes out when and if it comes back, it goes back into the pool of funds that we can give out to more plaintiffs. So there's no profit coming in, it's all goes towards our mission and our work, which is supporting plaintiffs with fair funding. So it comes in the door, it goes out the door, and that's how the cycle works. And so that's how we do it as a nonprofit. We're the only organization in the country that does it this way, probably the world. And yeah, it's not easy to be a nonprofit in this day and age for whatever industry you're in. Um, but it's a challenge that we like to try to take on, and that we think, we've been around for 10 years, so something is working and there is an appreciation for what we're doing. And there's a need for it. So
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
right. One, can I give the Milestone Foundation their flowers really quickly? I
yeah,
I
absolutely.
I want to give you your props, Rachel, because it is hard to be a nonprofit that gives out money, first of all.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're helping people in the toughest times in their lives, getting money at a 15% simple interest rate. It is amazing that you guys aren't out front more. And we're going to do this together, being out front, changing the industry. But we're fighting the same fight. We're in parallel tracks. This industry has been, like you said, Nalini, there's some skepticism, there's a negative connotation, and there's a reason for it. And Rachel is out front, and we are out front. We aren't coming. We're already here, and it's time to this. I'm excited to work with Blue Shark and Nalini. This is one of those big pillars that we're gonna push in on how we change an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's again, it's knowledge, right? It's letting people know because I think people don't have the idea that these things exist. Now, you guys both work with the end user, but I would want to kind of break this down a little bit because obviously, as a nonprofit, you have a finite amount of money that you can lend, right? And so I'd love to hear about how you select who you can work with or what type of audience you work with what you're given. And then Logan, you're an aggregator working with all the different lenders and banks and keeping them honest, right? So you have a lot more funds to distribute. So we'll talk about kind of your audience as well and who you can work with. But I'm interested to hear like what's the minimum you can give somebody? What's the max you can give somebody? What does that look like?
yeah, I mean, we're more strict. We just have to be. That's the way that we have survived this long. And also, we're very upfront about that. So if an attorney has a need, that a case or a client who's got a need that doesn't fit our parameters, then we'll tell them. And then there's a lot of other places they could go. ClaimAngel is the first stop. But we have no minimum. We'll fund, however small, and we try to talk plaintiffs down too to make sure that they understand what their need is, what they don't take out more than they need.
Yeah.
And so the most we'll give a plaintiff is $25,000. And that's just because the thought there is we'd rather help 5 families with $5,000 each than one person with 25,000. And we work primarily with trial lawyers. We don't really market to plaintiffs. We market to trial lawyers so that they will have an appreciation for what we do and how we do it and the fact that we're doing it differently, and they'll sort of self-select the cases that they'll send our way. So they know, we don't have a lot of room for risk, and thus they'll send us cases that might be less risky. And it also allows them to maintain their relationships if they have relationships with other funding companies, because we typically don't turn money around the same day. Maybe we can do it in the next day. We rush everything as often as we can, but our process is a little more thorough. There's a little more due diligence. So it typically takes a few days. So if they have a client who's about to be evicted, if they don't pay their rent today, then they might be better off sending them to a funding company that can get money out the door the same day. So there's still opportunity for attorneys to have their other relationships. But when a client fits the profile for us, then we just ask that they send them to us first. There's one thing I want to note that ClaimAngel's done a good job talking about is the fiduciary duty. So if you're an attorney, you're looking out for your client's best interest and you want to do what's in their best interest in all ways, including financially. So if you know that there is a funding option out there that is going to be the best funding option, the lowest cost for them, if you don't present it or at least, give it a shot, then are you doing your best by your client? And so that's one thing that we're trying to get out as well, like get the message out that we are far the best rates. And if you're an attorney and you're not telling your client about us, then you're not fully doing them the best service.
And taking time. And then Logan, kind of you're a little bit different in that you have more funds, more resources, but what does it look like for how you decide who you're working with and
Yeah,
the best?
we have a vetting for onboarding a company. We have 27 companies on the platform right now. Um, a couple quick facts about that. How long, Nalini, do you think it takes for a funding company imagine you're on eBay, by the way. This is how it works. Imagine you're on eBay and you're selling a pair of headphones, your shoes. For us, it's your legal case. You're selling a portion, a right, a purchase in your legal case. That post to the marketplace, how long do you think it takes for a funding company to reserve that claim? Take a guess.
I would usually give it a few hours a day or so for multiple people to come in.
11 seconds.
Yeah.
11 seconds. It takes 11 seconds. Our median's 11 seconds for a funding company because it's so sticky. So what we've done is we created a system that allows funding companies to not have a sales team, not have a customer service team, not have a payments team, a servicing team, a repayments team. That entire cost stack is eliminated. They just need an underwriter sitting on the site refreshing. So we've created the dynamic of funding companies are getting quality cases with case information at their fingertips. They just have to click a button. And that is how we have such a low rate. And in any single case that's a decent case, you should be going to Milestone Foundation first. Why? Because they're a lower rate than us. It's very hard for us to get to 15%. Milestone Foundation is your first stop. We are the scaled layer of that. 27.8% simple interest with a 2x cap. That is the rate. It does not change. There is no exceptions, ifs, ands, or buts. There's no asterisks. That is us. And funding companies laughed at us when we told them about this. They said it's never going to work. We're going to fail miserably. But to date, we've done, well, really in the last 2.5 years, we've done 125 million through the marketplace and over 25,000 fundings and at least one funding from over 650 law firms. So there's proof to it. We've proven that it can be done, and now it's time to change an entire industry. And we'll talk about that more, Nalini. But there's a future here of not being such a low adoption last resort industry to being more of the standard for people who are in a troubled time in their life. And we'll talk about that more, but there's so much that I could, this is my life. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you too. There's so much for me to talk about.
No, absolutely. And I've actually had an opportunity to see your like the back end, the portal that you guys kind of work off of where it's super simple for the attorneys to go in to see what's been bid on, what's actually like now in their system, where the money is, right? And that I thought was very, very interesting too, and a little bit different than a traditional funding company offers as well. So I just wanted to put that out there that you guys not only are concept sake trying to change the way things are done, but even backing it with technology as like the world is evolving, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
so jealous. I'm so jealous of their dashboards.
Yeah, it
They're
was
so-
really slick. Our whole accounts team was
I
like, wow,
know.
this is incredible. This seems a lot easier than we thought this would be for funding. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
A lot of my time is spent on the engineering side and working with the engineering team. We have some really good tech people on our team. Um, But we are a tech-first company with a human touch. We really want to make sure plaintiffs feel heard, they're catered to in their situation. But I'll talk about it in a little bit, but how we see the future of funding not being this super high touch phone call, text message, email system from law firms. It's more like infrastructure for law firms. And that's what we're getting to because the friction is what's causing the problems for law firm adoption on top of the rates. And we'll get there, Nalini, but no,
Yeah.
there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think we talked a lot. I don't know, Rachel, if you had anything else to add there on just like how you guys are a little bit different, educating the audience on why there's other options out there in the world and there maybe have blinders on from what's happened in the past.
Yeah, no, I think we covered all the ground we needed to cover there.
Also, the other one thing I would touch on too is Rachel, I know as we talked about you being a fundraiser type deal, a nonprofit, this money comes from, the percentage that you get back. That's what
Mhm.
builds your ability to give people. But how else do you guys kind of get those funds? Where does that come from?
However we can, we are applying for no, how ethically and above board. We
Not back
Logan.
alley. Okay.
We apply for grants, we hold fundraisers, we do the traditional like calling attorneys and calling folks and trying to raise money. We have events. Our biggest fundraiser is coming up in July. It's going to be during AAJ in Chicago, but we really try to appeal to folks in the civil justice system that either they've been a plaintiff themselves and they know what it's like to be in this tough spot and to receive some funding that helps you, just saves the day for you when you need it, and then they want to give back, or an attorney who has an appreciation for what we're doing and wants to see us continue to succeed, or granting organizations that have an emphasis on access to justice, because that's also a bit, that's like, Logan touched on it before, the access to justice piece, like giving the plaintiff a better level playing field against this defendant who has unlimited resources, unlimited time, unlimited money. And so it's an access to justice issue. So we're constantly looking out for grant opportunities. And then we've come up with other, scrappy creative ways. We have an attorney membership, we have corporate sponsorships. So we're really just trying to think of everything that's possible to get more
And I
money in the door.
I like that for you guys because that's the other piece of this is that there's two ways to work with the Milestone Foundation, right? There's you can borrow from us for your plaintiffs, but you can also help support the mission, right?
Hmm.
Which is really cool. I know attorneys are always looking for ways to give back, so I thought that was
Hmm.
important to talk about there.
Yeah.
You mentioned the access to justice. Logan, earlier you kind of talked about that like timeline, patience, being able to give that even playing field. So I guess let's talk a little bit about, who profits when a plaintiff goes unfunded. When we just like, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to offer this to my plaintiff. What's really happening there, quite frankly? And Logan, if you want to take that one.
The simple answer and the real only true answer is the defense. The defense profits when a plaintiff goes unfunded. Full stop. The defense profits when the plaintiff can't pay their bills. Defense profits when the plaintiff can't make their rent payment. What defense profits when the plaintiff has to work overtime and can't treat, and then there's treatment gaps. That's the problem in the litigation process is that 50%, as we established, over 50% of America lives paycheck to paycheck, but less than 5% of plaintiffs take funding. What does that mean? That means the defense is winning more than they should. That means plaintiffs are not getting the money when they should because their case is worth something, but it's worth something and they're going to be able to get money on it 12 to 18 months from now. They're struggling today. Rachel and I, ClaimAngel and the Milestone Foundation, help them access part of their value today. That's what funding does. And an unfunded plaintiff really just means the defense is winning the battle of time and the battle of the legal case.
And that kind of just it puts the attorneys themselves in a rock and a hard place, right? So it's interesting to me that sometimes attorneys will still choose to just deal with that versus going to a funding company, right? And again, why they should know there's other opportunities. Rachel, did you have anything to add to that as well?
Well, I just wanted to add to the attorney being in the rock and the hard place, because on the flip side, there are attorneys who have had instances where their client has taken out funding. I don't know if it's ever like unbeknownst to them, but it has ballooned to such a rate that it really handicaps the attorney, because now they know, okay, I have to make sure that I'm recovering this much, at least this much, or now this client has this outstanding debt that just keeps growing and growing. And so it might make the attorney feel like they need to wrap things up faster because they don't want things to keep ballooning. So it really, I could see that that would be a point why attorneys also dislike it, because it puts them at a disadvantage with their own potential, their own legal strategy or their own plan. And
Mhm.
it puts a different, like, ticking time bomb on the case when they know that their client has this outstanding debt that is growing and growing.
And they
And
have
when
to,
it's
and they have
plaintiffs
to,
direct, right, that's where they're honestly taking more than they should, and funding companies are fine with that because they're getting higher interest rate.
Yeah.
Logan, your platform, if I remember correctly, requires that the attorney actually check how much they're getting and approve it. Is there some process in there too, or
they're
attorney?
involved in the entire process. The
Yeah,
entire process.
yeah.
They have full access, and you said, Nalina, you saw the portal. They have full access and visibility. They have the ability to say no funding. We as a platform give the attorney behind the scenes um, some ability to give a cap or a limit on the funding. The client never knows about it. They can also tell us not to fund the client. Those are different types of levers that the attorney can have that I don't know if other funding companies have really leveraged, because at the end of the day, the attorney knows what's best on the case. The client needs money and they need more, they want more money than they need. Milestone Foundation does a good job at deducing how much money a client needs. But ultimately, the attorney says $3,000 funding on this max right now until the case progresses. Okay, the client can request $100,000. They're not going to get more than three. That's our advantage as a marketplace. We have those dynamics to our advantage.
Yep.
Um, but Rachel, you said something interesting that I totally forgot about now. But when the math becomes unsolvable, that's when issues come up because they're getting 5 grand, it turns into 20 grand, and it's a $40,000 settlement. That means the attorney has to start cutting their fees. There has to be an immediate reduction. Things just start spiraling. And that's why funding is in this negative, vicious cycle amongst all the other things as well. Settlement day is like doomsday. And that is ultimately one of the biggest issues in the industry, and why a rate like Rachel's at the Milestone Foundation or Claim Angels can change that entire dynamic at scale.
Mm. Yep. And then in terms of this, we're talking about the portal, we're talking about technology evolving, all those fun things. The world is changing very fast. Firms are using a lot of operational AI, right? They're starting to be more comfortable with that. How is that affecting any of the lending that's happening here, or even like their mindset, things like that you've seen in the industry?
Yeah,
Oh,
Rachel, you want to start? Or you want me to start?
Well, I feel like you have a lot that you want to say on this, and I only have just an anecdote, so I'm going to go first. So, Nalini, I haven't really seen AI come into play with respect to how we operate in the space. The one thing I will say is, being a small nonprofit, AI is very helpful because it allows us to act like a large nonprofit. We can use AI to help us find grant opportunities that are open, that fit our mission and our vision. We can use AI to help us come up with fundraising ideas or messaging that might reach attorneys that we haven't tried yet. So as a small nonprofit, AI is nice because it gives us a bigger team than we have. But as far as the way that it's impacted plaintiff funding, I haven't experienced that yet firsthand. Now I'll let Logan Logan
Not yet.
go.
Not yet. It's coming soon. We're in one of the most interesting times in human history. There's been revolutions in the past and most of them have been automating or streamlining physical processes. The Industrial Revolution was about the steam engine and all of that, but this is the first time ever we're automating cognition, people thinking. And it's a really unique opportunity for all of our industries and for the future of humankind. It's going to be crazy to see how fast everything's changing and moving. What we're talking about today, 4 months from now, is going to be completely different from how we do our process. It's exciting, it's different, it's nerve-wracking, but as you said, Nalini, firms are becoming more efficient and companies are becoming better for law. The process is decreasing. There's not as many cases being stale for multiple weeks. They're becoming more efficient. Time on desk is probably going to decrease 50% over the next couple of years, whatever that number is that they're pitching. But that's only one side of it. The one side of it is the law firms. The law firms have to do better on handling cases, more efficient. The other side is the plaintiff. The plaintiff isn't benefiting from the efficiency of the AI of the law firms. Yeah, the cases might go from 18 months to 12 months, but they still need to pay their rent next month.
Mhm.
So what I think AI is going to do and machine learning is going to do in the funding space is exactly what we're doing. We're building the standard with machine learning and AI and funding. So think about the core of how FICO works for consumer credit or Moody's works for bonds, the ratings, the tiers. We're building that behind the scenes of creating the standard for funding so it can become this bigger, highly adopted industry rather than this last resort. The reason I say that's important is because plaintiffs can be better plaintiffs if they're more informed on how their value expands with how their treatment goes, meaning they do a treatment, their case grows in value. Not all plaintiffs understand that.
Mhm.
And how plaintiffs understand that is not only just by concept, but fiscally. If they get money, if they can unlock a part of money with their case because they've been consistent, they've been a good plaintiff, a smart plaintiff, that's where I see the future of funding going. Not just being this one-time payday, but being this regular pay periods of plaintiffs realizing the value of their case as it progresses. And machine learning and AI is going to help us build the foundation. That's what we're doing at ClaimAngel, the foundation for plaintiff funding and for legal practices in general. And it's a super exciting time to be in. I'm fairly lucky. I'm at the forefront of it. But it's super interesting. I spent a lot of my time on it, and yeah, that's where I think it's headed.
It's kind of interesting because it made me think of what you were just saying, Logan, like the plaintiff experience and what they don't realize about their case or their asset. It's it all just comes down to better plaintiff education or better education for plaintiffs. If they don't understand the implications of what they're signing when they're signing a funding agreement, or they don't understand the value of certain parts of their case. I mean, most plaintiffs have never been a plaintiff before. Hopefully, they'll never be a plaintiff again. So I just think of someone like my mom who, had a slip and fall last year and has no idea of how any of this works. And I mean, fortunately, I can help her here and there, but she's a smart woman, but it's just something that she's never had to navigate. And a lot of people are just generally suspicious of the legal industry
Mhm.
in all ways. And so a lot of
Mhm.
it just comes down to having more education, more resources for plaintiffs so they understand all the little bits and pieces along the way. And not just like this is the timeline or these are the papers you have to fill out, but like here's the thing you have to know about plaintiff funding. Here's the thing you have to know about medical liens. Here's what you have to know about your treatment process, et cetera, et cetera. Like there just needs to be more resources for plaintiffs.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just piggyback on that for 1 second. On top of that, there are Nalini, the concept of a legal case isn't as uh, second nature for people. People don't understand how to handle a legal case. But what you do know, most people know is that if you put work into your house and you improve it, you renovate it, that house is going to grow in value. And it's the same thing with a legal case.
Uncomfortable.
Your case is in itself an asset. That asset has a certain value. If you don't do anything with it, you're going to let the case go through. You're going to have treatment gaps. But really, the consistent treatment following the law firm's guidance and plan is going to grow your case value. And we think at ClaimAngel, we're going to help unlock that case value with tiers and all of that. I'm not going to get too deep into it. There's a little bit proprietary on our end,
Mhm.
but I think there's a big part of the industry that's underserved right now. And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish
I,
that thought.
I I I believe the future of I think 5 years from now, 2031 in legal is very different because of funding than it was for the last 30 years.
I like that. And I think if more people are seeing what the two of you are doing and what your companies are doing and that gets bigger, I'm 100% with that bold prediction as well, right? It's just a matter of that education. And then, Rachel, you also said, it's resources for the plaintiff, but at the same time, that's resources for the plaintiff's attorney too, right? The
Mhm.
more that their plaintiffs are well behaved, informed,
Mhm.
educated, right? The more that the asset is growing there with their case study. So I find this stuff to be the sexiest for the attorneys that are on this call right now watching for when we send this out and we do maybe a one pager, the things that are going to be the most helpful right now with the way that the world's changing is how do I streamline, right? How do I make sure that this is as clean as possible for my end user, my client, and then ultimately, how do I raise my value of the case, right? And so everything you just said, Logan, with what you're talking about that would be built, if I'm hearing correctly, essentially a system that will evaluate the case, the plaintiff, and spit out here's what we think should happen in order to help increase the value of your case, right? And so that really is helping the plaintiff's attorney cut that work
Exactly.
out of their own day, right?
Exactly.
That's
That's
what
and
okay. Yeah,
I
that's
think I think
incredible.
it's I think it's a big missing piece in the legal equation right now. A lot of the AI companies are focusing on the law firms, rightfully so. The law firms need help and work as t technology advances. We're focused on the plaintiff. How can we
Yeah,
help the plaintiff be a better plaintiff, a smart plaintiff?
yeah.
And that's where we think the future of legal cases and handling is going as well.
No, I think that's great because there are a lot of great tools out there that are like the communication between the attorney and the plaintiff.
Mhm.
But a lot of times the attorneys don't have the time, the paralegals, the office staff to answer all those questions. And that's where you end up with this, oh, I'm going to go hard right and go get my own loan. I'm going to go do something, just out of the box and then cause
Yeah.
all sorts of issues. So that sounds really, really awesome. And that's kind of like what you're building for the future in this whole, like I said, disruption, right? A great disruption. It's a positive thing.
One other thing I want to say, Nalini, you were just talking about the pieces of this that are interesting to the attorneys, is also the idea of differentiating because attorneys want to differentiate themselves from all the other attorneys out there. And so if they are on the forefront of adopting, ClaimAngel's model, the Milestone Foundation, if they are early adopters of this alternative model of plaintiff funding, it differentiates them from the other attorneys out there. Their clients have a much better experience. They get better Google reviews at the end of the day. So it really behooves attorneys to think about this industry in a different light and to be open to working in this industry and partnering with companies like ClaimAngel and the Milestone Foundation because it'll just make their firm sharper and it'll help differentiate them.
Yeah, absolutely. It just amplifies that end user, as I keep saying, right? The client's journey with them.
Mhm.
So kind of here summarizing, right? We talked about all the holes in the industry, the things that you saw wrong, the reasons you guys came out and your organizations and your companies have chosen to go a different way, right, to fix this. As we talk about, like, if we could fill all those holes and if we could build a beautiful product or a beautiful new funding world from scratch, what would that look like? And I think we talked a lot about that, Logan, but if you want to summarize that, I'm gonna throw that one to you first.
Yeah.
If you
If I
could
was
solve the world's problem.
if solving the world's problems, if I were to be rebuilding this from scratch, I think the industry has been looking at it the wrong way. I We need better rates, we need better terms, and we need better contracts. That's clear. I think that's missing the point. And I think the point here is that it's never been about funding. It's always been about the case. And people are in the toughest times in their lives. They've been in an accident. They have this asset of a case. And the case needs to grow in order to have a decent settlement. But they can't touch the value of that case for 18 months. So I think the rebuild will be focused on case strategy. How can you use funding to increase the value of cases? Because I don't think funding is this last resort favor that it's been. It's leverage. It's leverage to help even the playing field between a plaintiff and the defense. They have all the time. The The delay, the deny, and the defend. That's their motto. You can look it up. It's all over the internet. Delay, deny, defend. And plaintiffs can't get to the next rent payment. We're helping give plaintiffs leverage to be on that even playing field. So when I'm thinking about rebuilding the industry from scratch, I think about the case strategy. And
Mm.
how do you build a standardized system like FICO did for consumer credit, like Moody's did for the bond ratings? How do you build a standard to increase the adoption from less than 5% of plaintiffs to over 25%? That's where my head's at on how you rebuild an industry. It's with case strategy. That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah. To me, it's a simple concept of you're leaving money on the table by not doing that, right? Or doing justice by your plaintiff. Rachel, do you have anything to add to that one?
I Logan's really good at the process driven, the tactical. I think of it more from the social justice, civil justice side. I just, I think of it more as how offensive it is that year over year insurance companies and these huge pharmaceutical companies or whomever are having record profits. I think just there was some statistic I saw that recently about the profits of three different insurance companies this year, and how for me it's like the David and Goliath narrative,
Mhm.
and just giving folks, Americans, most of whom are in there before an accident happens or a tragedy or a trauma, are already like it's hard. It's hard to do okay in this economy. And so just giving people a step up, and what Logan was saying earlier, centering the plaintiff in all of this. Like the person and their circumstances gets so lost in the shuffle when people are talking about rates and fees and caps and terms. And it's like at the end of the day, it's about a person's life, and it's about their family and their kids, and if they can give their kids, freaking groceries. And so I think like for me, that's why I'm drawn to the nonprofit side of it, I guess, is because like
Mhm.
it's the human part of it. And I think that it just needs to be re-centered on the plaintiff and the human struggles. So
Yeah, humanizing it. I love that. I'm gonna take a minute here to run a poll. We've got a couple of questions for the folks who have joined us here today that I'm about to set out to them. You guys probably won't be able to see this, but as I'm doing that, we'll wrap up with maybe one or two more questions. If folks have questions that are here live right now, please feel free to put that in the question and answer section. But I think take the moment, you two, to think about, if there's one takeaway that you want somebody to leave this from that's maybe actionable or not, but like something to leave this session with, what that is. Because there's a lot of important pieces, right, that we've kind of talked about, but the very most important, or even just a fact if you want to reiterate as like the most important thing to you. All right, I just launched that poll. There's three questions. If you just take a quick minute to answer those, we would appreciate it. And
on
then
one
we can
hand, on
start.
one hand, I'm surprised at how long we spoke, but actually, on the other hand, I'm not, because I know that Logan and I could pontificate
Are
on
you,
this
are
for
you
a
saying
long
I'm a yapper? Are you saying?
time.
Yeah. Also just letting you guys know that almost 100% of the folks that have joined us live would like to learn more about ClaimAngel and the Milestone Foundation.
Yeah.
But let's get those 2 points from you guys, one each, on what do you think is the most important piece to leave this with. I always like it to be actionable, quite frankly, but do what you want.
Rachel?
Yeah, thank you. I think I would just like attorneys who feel as though they have made up their mind on plaintiff funding one way or the other, or they have a stance on plaintiff funding. I would like them to just take 5 minutes to learn about the Milestone Foundation and ClaimAngel, and think about if there is a world where they might be open to reconsidering their stance on plaintiff funding, because I do think that they're doing their clients a disservice if they are not partnering with one of us, and that they would benefit greatly from being a little more open-minded about plaintiff funding and the industry as a whole.
So
Yeah, my takeaways would be plaintiff funding used to really suck. It used to be very predatory. It is no longer. It does not have to be. With the Milestone Foundation and ClaimAngel, we are changing the face of it entirely. Uh, the the age of 100% contracts and hidden fees and stacked terms, that's gone. We are out front changing an industry actively. As Nalini said, we're disrupting everything. We have companies, funding companies that love us. We have funding companies that hate us, absolutely hate us. And that means we're doing something right. We're doing something right because we're changing the industry and we're focused on the plaintiff. We want to help people. Another thing to take away is this isn't a last resort. This is case strategy. This is helping people in the toughest times of their life, not wait for one of the biggest lump sum payments ever that they've ever had, 18 months from now, getting a little bit to get by. It's really about the necessity to live, pay their bills, and that will influence them to be a better plaintiff. We've seen it all the time in ClaimAngel. We have smarter plaintiffs treating more and growing case value. And those are the two things that I'd like to take away. There's a bunch of different things that I'd like to say on the call, but there's only so much you can say in a confined amount of
Yeah.
time. If you guys ever want to reach out to me, my email is logan@claimangel.com. Please do. I have so many thoughts, as well as Rachel does and Alini does, on how the industry is going to change.
These are little QR codes that will take you guys to more information. I'm not sure if you guys want to explain what yours might be, if there's anything that's an offer or of interest there for them. But I want to call out that if you're interested, to definitely go find out if you'll be in Chicago or at AAJ. Rachel, you mentioned that's one of uh,
Mhm.
your bigger events, but you didn't mention how you get tickets or how you get involved. If you want to take a minute to talk about that.
Yeah, it's all on our website. It's our Compassionate Counsel Awards, which we have every year. We honor a few attorneys who fit the values and vision and mission of what the Milestone Foundation does. And it's an in-person event. This year we're doing it during AAJ, so it will be Saturday, July 25th, and you can buy tickets on our website.
Awesome. And then Logan, I don't know if you guys do free demos of your portal, but I want you to do that. I want you to give those out to people. I would encourage people to absolutely go check that out because I think that is so very cool with the tech and the control that you have as a plaintiff's attorney to help with that case value.
I'd personally love to give you a demo anytime. And Nalini, I can even walk you through. I know you've seen it, but show you
Yeah.
the full end-to-end experience because it's very unique to this industry and also other industries. We've taken a unique approach to it. We're integrating with the top case management softwares to be behind the scenes and integrated and not this high friction process with case status updates and information transfers.
Mhm.
We're a tech first platform with a human touch. I said that earlier, but we really want to change the way funding is operating, and the Milestone Foundation is really focused on the mission and the nonprofit side of it. We are in parallel tracks on the technology and the scale and changing the industry. That's where we are with it, and I'm super excited to see what the industry has coming for us in the future.
I love it. I don't know if you guys have anything additional you want to add before we close here. I'll reiterate to everybody that we will be sending out the recording to everyone who registered and is live here. So you guys didn't have to, if you missed a question or anything, and then you can get in touch with everybody. Their information is here as well.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you, Nalini. You have a 4-week-old at home, so you are so kind, so crazy to be doing this, but you also are a wonderful interviewer. So thank you. It was nice.
Well, I learned a lot, and I'm not usually a person for statistics, but I will tell you what, that less than 5% that do this was very like shocking to me, given
Yeah.
obviously how many trials and litigation there is out there. Like that's growing in
Yeah.
numbers, and that it
And how
truly,
many funding companies
yeah,
there are? There's like a
yeah,
hundred funding companies. So
yeah, that blew my mind. I think that was my takeaway in that so very few attorneys leverage this as a tool to get a higher case settlement value.
Exactly.
right? Like
Exactly.
outcome. And then, I mean, I hope in 5 years that we see a funding industry that is more humanized and more focused on what's important, not necessarily, those rates and this and that, but really focusing on how is this actually helping your plaintiff and your case.
Mhm.
So that was very cool
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
learn those items.
Nalini, you were amazing. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you guys for joining. Really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch with the folks who registered with this link. And then if you need anything from anybody, or if you can't get in touch with Logan or Rachel, something didn't work, please feel free to contact Blue Shark and we'll get connected with them.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye,
See you guys.
guys.